Totenkopf is the German word for the skull and crossbones and death's head symbols. The Totenkopf symbol is an old international symbol for death, the defiance of death, danger, or the dead, as well as piracy. It consists usually of a human skull with or without the mandible and often includes two crossed long bones, most often depicted with the crossbones being behind some part of the skull. It is commonly associated with 19th and 20th century German military use. Prominent use of the symbol by Nazi SS forces during World War II as German Einsatzgruppen death squads undertook the Holocaust caused a widespread decline in its use and a secondary association with political extremism, although several groups and individuals continued using it despite the linkage. Etymology: Totenkopf translates literally to dead's head, construed broadly as a dead person's head. Semantically, it refers to a skull, literally a currency del. As a term, Totenkopf connotes the human skull as a symbol, typically one with crossed thigh bones as part of a grouping. Contemporary German language meaning of the word Totenkopf has not changed for at least 2 centuries. For example, the German poet Clemens Brentano wrote in the story Baron H. 1/4 Finstick, Lauter Totenbein und Totenke paragraph A, Die Standen oben herum. The common translation of Totenkopf as death's head is incorrect. It would be Todeskopf, but no such word is in use. The English term death squad is called Todessquadron, not Totenschwadron. It would be a logical fallacy to conclude that usage varies only because of the German naming of the death's head Haukmoth, which is called Skull Haukmoth in German, in the same way that it would be a fallacy to conclude that the German word Nachtkäse would mean willow herb, just because the willow herb Haukmoth is called night candle Haukmoth in German. German military Prussia Use of the Totenkopf as a military insignia began under Frederick the Great, who formed a regiment of Hussar cavalry in the Prussian army commanded by Colonel von Rausch, the Husaren Regiment NR5. It adopted a black uniform with a Totenkopf emblazoned on the front of its militons and wore it on the field in the War of Austrian Succession and in the 7 Years' War. The Totenkopf remained a part of the uniform when the regiment was reformed into Leibhusaren Regiments NR1 and NR2 in 1808. When Frederick William, Duke of Brunswick-Wolfenbüttel 1/4 TTEL, was killed in battle during the Napoleonic Wars, his troops changed their uniform colors to black or apple green, with a Totenkopf on their shakos in mourning their dead leader. Other sources claim that the Black Brunswickers were so equipped while Friedrich Wilhelm of Brunswick lived, as a sign of revenge on the French. The skull continued to be used throughout the Prussian and Brunswick armed forces until 1918, and some of the stormtroopers that led the last German offensives on the Western Front in 1918 used skull badges. Weimar Republic The Totenkopf was used in Germany throughout the interwar period, most prominently by the Freikorps. In 1933, it was in use by the regimental staff and the 1st, 5th, and 11th Squadrons of the Reichswehr S 5th Cavalry Regiment as a continuation of a tradition from the Kaiserreich. Third Reich In the early days of the NSDAP, Julius Schreck, the leader of the Stasi, resurrected the use of the Totenkopf as the unit's insignia. This unit grew into the Schutzstaffel, which continued to use the Totenkopf as insignia throughout its history. According to a writing by Reichswehr 1/4 SS Heinrich Himmler, the Totenkopf had the following meaning. The skull is the reminder that you shall always be willing to put yourself at stake for the life of the whole community. The Totenkopf was also used as the unit insignia of the panzer forces of the German Heer, and also by the panzer units of the Luftwaffe, including those of the elite Volkssturmpanzer Division 1 Hermanngard Paragraph Ring. Both the 3rd SS Panzer Division of the Waffen-SS, and the World War II-era Luftwaffe's 54th Bomber Wing Kampfgeschwader 54 were given the unit name Totenkopf, and used a strikingly similar-looking graphic skull crossbones insignia as the SS units of the same name. Non-German military. A skull and crossbones has often been a symbol of pirates, especially in the form of the Jolly Roger, but usually having the crossbones beneath the skull rather than behind it, as used by pirate Samuel Bellamy in one example. The Italian elite stormtroopers of the Arditi used a skull with a dagger between its teeth as a symbol during World War I. Various versions of skulls were also later used by the Italian fascists. The British Army's Royal Lancers continue to use the skull and crossbones in their emblem, inherited from its use by the 17th Lancers, a unit raised in 1759 following General Wolfe's death in Quebec. The emblem contains an image of a death's head, and the words "or glory," chosen in commemoration of Wolfe. In 1792, a regiment of Hussards de la Mort was formed to defend the young French Republic from the Austrian attempt to invade France. South Korea's 3rd Infantry Division have a skull and crossbones in their emblem. The primarily Prussian 41st Regiment New York Volunteer Infantry, mustered in, June 6, 1861 mustered out, December 9, 1865 wore a skull insignia. The Portuguese Army Police 2nd Lancers Regiment use a skull and crossbones image in their emblem, similar to the one used by the Queen's Royal Lancers. The Kingdom of Sweden's Hussar regiments wore a death's head emblem in the Prussian style on the front of the Mutton. Ramaque den Cabarrus Regiment adopted in 1838 a skull with crossbones flanked by an olive branch and a sword on a black flag during the Spanish Carlist Wars. The White Russian Kornilov Regiment adopted a death's head emblem in 1917. The Estonian Kiprijanov's Partisan Battalion used the skull and crossbones as their insignia. The Kiprijanov Infantry Battalion continues to use the skull and crossbones as their insignia today. 2 Polish small cavalry units used death's head emblem during Polish-Euro-Ukrainian War and Polish-Euro-Soviet War, Diawizon Jazdy Ochotnikaj and Potserski Ochotnishi Battalion SHMIERCI. During 1943 to 1945 the Italian Black Brigades and numerous other forces fighting for the Italian Social Republic, wore various versions of skulls on their uniforms, berets, and caps. Although not exactly a Totenkopf per se, the Chilean guerrilla leader Manuel Rodriguez used the symbol on his elite forces called Hussars de la Muerte. The United States Marine Corps reconnaissance battalions use the skull and crossbone symbol in their emblem. The No. 100 Squadron RAF continue to use a flag depicting a skull and crossbones supposedly in reference to a flag stolen from a French brothel in 1918. The Batola Poundo di Opera Piccavolt Micronos Policier Speciae, a special unit within the military police of Rio de Janeiro State, Brazil, uses the skull emblem to differentiate their team from the regular units. Many United States cavalry reconnaissance troops or squadrons utilize a skull insignia, often wearing the traditional Stetson hat, and backed by either crossed cavalry sabers, crossed rifles, or some other variation, as an unofficial unit logo. These logos are incorporated into troop T-shirts, challenge coins, or other items designed to enhance morale and esprit de corps. Commercial, Kraft International logo, military training company founded by Chris Kyle. See also, 3rd SS Division Totenkopf, Fascist symbolism, Human skull symbolism, Kampfgeschwader 54, Jolly Roger, Kiprijanov Battalion, Memento Mori, Skull and Crossbones, Skull and Bones, SS Totenkopf Verba Currency NDE. Bibliography, Klaus D. Porzwall, Der SS Totenkopfring 5th edition, Porzwall, Melbeck 2010, ISBN 978-3-931533-07-6. Joost HLSCHER, Death's Head, The History of the Military Skull and Crossbones Badge. 1st edition, A Permil Editions Chameral 2013, ISBN 978-90-820326-0-4. References